So in the Art Scroll Haggadah, it's on the gray pages, starting on page LIV, which is 54. No, it starts with the 15, Kadesh, Urchatz, etc. Now, so now the other. Does everybody have what I'm talking about? The 15 stages of the Haggadah. If not, we'll have to find it in every book.
We were slaves. Page 27.
Okay.
In the Malbim Haggadah. Cool.
Okay. You have it there? No.
Kadesh v'rachatz.
Yes, Kiddush Urchatz. I can't see. Yeah, that's right. It looks like this in the Art Scroll.
Yeah. Good work.
See, you have it? No, or no?
Yes.
Yeah, you have it. I see you have it.
Just kind of like put in that kind of weird here.
Okay, so there are 15 stages in the Haggadah. There are 15 Shirei Hamalos, psalms that are psalms of ascent. There are 15 steps in the Azorah, in the Beis Hamikdash, going from the lowest level to the highest level. 15 is a matter of ascending. That's one reason I say why it was chosen for the Haggadah, and many people, we included, have a way of singing the 15 out. Now I'm going to ask you a question which I only saw in like one or two Hasidic Sforim. It's a good question for you to ask at the Seder. Those who are listening can use it as well. There's in the language there's a very strange peculiarity because it is Kadesh is number one, Urchatz and wash number two, and then it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 without any ands. Only one and joining 1 and 2. All the rest are without ands. That's weird. No one would write a list 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No one would do that. So the and is there because it's supposed to be there, because it's important. What's it important for? So Kadesh and Rachatz are, in a certain sense, opposites in terms of their connotations. Kadesh means to sanctify. Sanctify means to raise something up, move it higher, enable it to reach a more significant level. Rachatz means you got dirt on you, wash it off, get rid of it. So the normal understanding is one is to increase the good, and the other is to rid yourself of the bad. Now, when you think of a self-improvement, I think this is something a psychologist would have to explain. I'm not really qualified, but when people think of self-improvement, it's a natural association of stopping doing something that's bad. That definitely is an improvement, but it's not the only kind of improvement. Imagine a basketball player improving his aim, not ridding himself of something bad. He's fine-tuning something that's already good. You know, he's on the team because he's good at it. It's just he could be better at it. Improving the good things you do is also a way of improving yourself. Now the question will be, how do you start? And there's a famous verse in Tehillim, in Psalms, Sur Meirav Aseh Tov. Turn away from bad and do good. And you could naturally take that as instructions how to make progress. First, turn away from the bad, and second, to do good. You could do that. On the other hand, in the Shemona Esrei, it says, Hashiveinu avinu l'sorasecha, bring us back, our Father, to your Torah. Korveinu malkeinu la'avodasecha, draw us close, our King, to your service. V'achzireinu b'shuva shleima lefanecha, and return us in perfect repentance before you. So, bring us back to the Torah and bring us close to your service. That's positive. That's both adding positive. Enable us to do tshuva. Tshuva is how you rid yourself of the negative. So now you have, I think, the opposite order. Here in the Shemona Esrei, it's first adding to the positive and then ridding yourself of the negative. So I have to explain how that could be. How could the authors of the Shemona Esrei ignore the verse from Psalms? Obviously, he can't do that. He's not doing that. But you do see two different perspectives as to how you should proceed. And I think that that's what you have here in the Haggadah. Kadesh, Urchatz. The Vav puts the two of them together. They're a pair. The rest of them aren't pairs. It's just a list. And it means first add to the good, and then afterwards wash yourself off of the bad. Now, if I'm going to follow the direction, and this is a difference of opinion in our sources, especially between Mussar sources, some of them anyway, and Hasidic sources and the other. But if you're going to take this second approach, which I think would be more characteristic of the Hasidic approach, to start with the positive, like, for example, I asked my Rabbi Zatzal once, what about Cheshbon Nefesh? Doing an evaluation of your performance, an evaluation of your soul, how you're doing in your spiritual life. And there are people who do it every night before they go to sleep. So if you want to do it once a week or once a month, everybody does it once a year in Yom Kippur. So he said it's appropriate. He didn't tell me I have to do it. He said it's appropriate with one condition. You're going to think back over the past time, how you've done. Start by finding something that you did well, something you feel successful about. Meditate on it, dwell on it, polish it, let it glow, bask in the glow. And then when you feel basically good about yourself, then think about the things that didn't go so well. Think of ways that you could improve them. So it's definitely starting with the good and then moving to the bad. What then are you going to do with King David's verse? The answer is very simple. King David says, Suri Ravasei Tov, turn away from evil and do good. Who says those are steps 1 and 2? Maybe they're steps 2 and 3. Maybe it's a 3-step process. First step is do good. Now, the first step when you do good, you have bad in you. You haven't washed it off yet. So the good that you're doing is a compromised good. It's not a pure good, because part of the bad that's in you participates in the doing of the good. So what? You're doing good. So it's a compromised good, because you're not perfect. Welcome to the club. Now that you've done a good, that doing of the good enables you to rid yourself of the evil, and then you'll be able to do good in a pure sense. Or maybe it's not a 3-step process, maybe it's a 2n plus 1 process, 151, or 4,963, or who knows what. It's an odd numbered process, starting with doing good, and then repeating the cycle. In each case, you start to do something good, and then use that strength to remove something evil, and you do it that way. That would be an expression of what you have in the Shemona Esrei, or what I think you have here in the 15, the first 2 of the 15 levels of the Seder. Yeah.
So, 2 things quick. First, and this is a small one, where then is step 1 buried in that psalm? And 2, in this case, would we say that Kaddish would represent that imperfect good, the Urchatz would be the confronting of the bad, and then the completion of the Haggadah as a whole would represent the more completed good?
No, first of all, I don't understand the first question. The first step is Kaddish.
Well, so the first step is, but then if it's the case here that you have the 1, 2, 3 model, then Kaddish would be an imperfect good, going by what you said there in Psalms.
That's right.
Followed by, the washing of the hands.
It has to be imperfect, because otherwise it couldn't be followed by washing.
Okay.
Washing means you still got something bad there that has to be taken off.
Step 3 is located in the rest of the whole.
I didn't think of that, to tell you the truth. I wanted to know. My concern was where you start. Are you getting here the rest of step 3? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know about that, because I'm thinking of it as a continuing process.
So then the other question: where is step 1 then in Psalm? Is it just omitted, or
Right. King David's thought. I think David's message is: how do you get to purity? You get to purity in 2 steps. You turn away from the evil, and then you are capable of doing good. And there, the Aseh Tov means a perfect Tov, a perfect good. Right? He's talking about a different subject. It's 2 different subjects. That's what I think. Okay, that's the. I have nothing to say now more about the simanim. Let's go to Kiddush. This year it's on Wednesday night, so we don't have to put on the part about Shabbos. Let's go to the main body of Kiddush after the Rebbe Goffen. As I always say when I start with one of these series, I'm giving you what appeals to me, what I'm trained to find. There are 1,000 different perspectives, and you get different things from different people. Chas v'sholom, anybody should think I'm telling you this is what it means. I'm telling you what aspects that I can share with you, which will help you understand some of it better, but others will say other things, and they're equally good, equally true, and equally right. Okay, so now, blessed are you, Hashem, the God, King of the universe. I'm not going to comment on that. Who has chosen us from all peoples and lifted us above all tongues and made us holy through his commandments. I think the order here is very, very important. What makes us special? What makes us elevated? You might have thought that what makes us special and elevated is the fact that God gave us the Torah. He gave us the Torah, and as he is quoted here, he made us holy, sanctified us through his commandments. That's what made us holy. That's why we're special. That's why we're different. Kiddush here is telling you that's wrong. Because he chose us before he gave us the commandments. And he elevated us above all tongues, which is some kind of special characteristic, some special feature, before he gave us all the commandments. So there have to be things here which make us different and special and elevated before we get to the commandments. So now I have to understand what that is. Yeah.
Why the reference to bringing us to a higher place with the Lashon? Why is it?
I'm going to talk about that. I just wanted to get the order on the table. Yeah? Okay. Now, the first is, he chose us for all the peoples. Ramchal says in the Derech Hashem that after the calamity in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Chava were expelled, and the whole world deteriorated greatly, and we lived in an entirely different environment where the physicality of the environment was overwhelmingly emphasized, and spirituality was very attenuated, there was a possibility of recovering some element of the original Garden of Eden existence, even in the lower reality, so as to be able to relate to that higher existence, represented in the lower reality, and to develop through it. There was a possibility of doing that. That is exactly what Abraham did, as you probably all know. Ramchal says anyone and everyone could have done it. Everybody could have done it together. There could have been a unified human population, everyone on the same level. The Torah has no commitment to there being a two-tiered humanity. On the contrary, God's Baruch Hu tried over and over again to have a homogeneous humanity. It was only human bad decisions that made it impossible. So he chose us because only Abraham did it, and that made us special. They say as a quip, we chose God, then he chose us. And to a certain extent, that's true. He laid out that potentiality. The challenge was there for everyone. Only Abraham rose to it, and God responded to him by doing that. But it wasn't a process of choosing. It was a process of elevating, and it could have involved everyone. There wouldn't be any choosing. It's just that only one did it. That's the first step of choosing, yeah.
None.
Okay. Now he said, elevated above all tongues. So I want to just, I taught philosophy of language, so I could do this for 3 months. But I just want to give you one little idea. There was an anthropologist, a French anthropologist, okay, the red line sirens, alarm should be going off already. French anthropologist who said, consider how lucky we French are and how crippled the poor English are. Because in French, when you describe something, the noun comes first and the adjectives come afterwards, like in Hebrew. Whereas in English, the adjectives come first. A red, strong, ivy-covered house. You get the house at the end. Whereas in French, it's the other way around. House comes first and the adjective afterwards. And he said, the human mind thinks in terms of objects and then qualities. So French mirrors the way the human mind works. That's why French is such a wonderful language. The poor English are crippled in their thinking because their language is opposite to the way human beings think. Because they think noun adjectives, and their language goes adjectives noun. The poor English are crippled and second class and second rate because their minds and their languages are at odds with one another. Didn't occur to him that the language you speak affects the way you think. And maybe that English children who are brought up speaking English don't think the way French children think because they speak a different language. That didn't occur to him, clever fellow, right? But then it's very important. The language that you speak affects the way you think. Now, the Hebrew language is a language with which the universe was created. So it's pretty important to think in Hebrew. Those of us who grew up in America, I never achieved it. When I look in a Hebrew dictionary, I'm still looking for P. I'm looking for the pay is there, but I read P because my mind thinks in English. That's where I am. Right? But the elevators are above all tongues to give us a language, the one language that isn't conventional, one language that reflects an external reality, and that definitely affects our thought processes and the way our emotions develop. It has a tremendous effect. The translations that you get of Hebrew words are almost all wrong in nuance, and some are just wrong in. I don't know how many speak Hebrew, but if you look at the word nachal in a dictionary, they'll tell you it means river or stream. Okay, it says in the book of Genesis that Isaac's servants dug in the nachal and found water. They dug in the stream and found water. Man, oh man, Yeshivat. Maybe it was Purim, Maybe they were drunk. Just take a bucket and take the water out. What do you mean? No, nachal means what we call in contemporary language a wadi. It means it's a river bed. In this country, you have wadis that 95% of the time of the year they're dry, and when there's rain in the hills, the water comes crashing through. Right? A nachal is in the stream. It's a riverbed. That's why they dug in the riverbed to find water. Mabul, let's say the Mabul was a flood, right? So then the verse says, the Mabul was water on the face of the earth. And of course the reader says, that's the Bible, it says silly things. Every 6-year-old knows that. It talks in funny ways, it doesn't make much sense. But the word Mabul doesn't have anything to do with water. The word Mabul is not related to water at all. Mabul I would call an entropizer, something that increases entropy. It disorders things. It could be a firestorm, it could be an earthquake, it could be a flood, it could be a windstorm, it could be anything.
So it's chaos.
So it creates chaos in a certain sense. And then it says, this case, the chaotic effect was made by water on the face of the earth. That makes perfectly good sense. Shalom doesn't mean hello, even though it's used that way. And shalom doesn't mean peace. Because peace in English is a negative concept. Peace means the absence of conflict, the absence of disturbance. In English, you could say that a graveyard is very peaceful. That's perfectly good English expression. You could never say that in Hebrew. Shalom means completeness. Completeness in a certain sense of perfection. A graveyard is not complete and perfect. So shalom, peace too, that means just the absence of conflict. Shalom would mean cooperation and mutual respect and mutual care, right? It's a much different, richer concept. So you can't trust the dictionaries, and that's all symptomatic of the fact that the language here, makes a big difference. Yeah.
So I'm confused about the Hashem because the way you described it doesn't sound like Hashem really chose us. It sounds like it just happens to be that Abraham, who was like the forefather of our nation, was like the only guy who did what he was supposed to do, whereas everyone else didn't. So it doesn't sound like it was an active choice by Hashem. It's just, okay, you did it, so now you're the nation.
I just don't hear the logic at all. You have a talent search or whatever it is, and then you choose the ones who did best for your job. They don't get the job because they have the best those talent. You have to hire them. You may have other things in mind to hire them besides just the talent of what they're doing. You may see for their future they'll crumble under a greater challenge. I don't know. The point is, he qualified to be chosen, but that doesn't mean you're automatically chosen. We have a lot of things like that. Prophecy also. You can prepare yourself for prophecy. Don't guarantee you'll get it. After you prepare yourself, because Baruch Hu decides whether he wants to give it to you or doesn't want to give it to you.
So when we say Asher B'Kavana, we're saying because we merited to be chosen, we were chosen. That's
Not because. Meriting it was the condition that made it possible. Not because. It doesn't cause it. Nobody caused the Kodesh Baruch Hu to do anything. You qualify, and then he decides whether he wants you or he doesn't want you. Yeah.
Were you embracing, when you said you're looking through a Hebrew dictionary, were you embracing modern Hebrew? Or was that...
The words that I use are all in the Tanakh. They're not modern words. It's not like telephone encyclopedia in modern Hebrew. They're all in the Tanakh, and these words, if they were doing it for the Tanakh, they would be saying the same thing. Yeah.
When did we get exalted by the Hebrew lashon? Like when we were was revealed to us Hebrew, like through Abraham Avinu?
I don't know how far back it goes, whether he had it in his family. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of that. It sounds like what happens is there's some quality demonstrated by Avraham, which then has a connection to the fact that the proper language is bestowed, which is training or is at least a parallel process to the developing of the qualities that then bring about the commandments.
Could be.
So maybe the way I've heard Abraham's like merit described was that he viewed the world properly, right? He observed things. So maybe Hebrew has this quality of accurately portraying and representing how the world is.
Oh, it certainly does. I mean, it's the world. It's a language with which it was created. It says Kodesh Baruch Hu brought the animals to Adam and asked him to name them. There is even a source, I was not aware of this till recently, my Rabbi pointed out to me, where he named himself. He named himself. Okay, let's go on. So now, so what does it mean he sanctified it through his commandments? There are two meanings here. One is that when you do a mitzvah, that mitzvah puts you in touch with a certain sanctity, a certain holiness. And you gain in your holiness by the mitzvah that you do. That's one meaning. But there's a more dramatic meaning, and that is when he gave us the Torah as a whole, that giving us the Torah sanctified us in a general and fundamental way, not incremental, like a shift of actual quality instead of quantity. And this is borne out by a famous Rashi, the comment of the Sfas Emes. The Torah says, the Tzavim says, Lo b'shamayim hi leimor mi aleh shamayim v'ikachecha lanu b'nasena. Torah is not in heaven that you should say, who should go to heaven and get it for us, and we'll do it. No, it's not in heaven. It's with you, your v'ich, in your mouth and your heart to do it. Fine. So Rashi says, quite surprisingly, because if it were in heaven, you'd have to go there to get it. The verse sounds like it's an expression of impossibility. If it were in heaven, then we could complain that we can't go there to get it, so we're not responsible. No, Rashi says, if it were in heaven, you'd have to go there to get it. So Sfas Emes asks, what does Rashi mean? How is he supposed to anticipate that we'll be able to go to heavens to get it? And he says, when a Kodesh Baruch Hu gives a mitzvah, he gives you the ability to do the mitzvah. When he gives it to you, he gives you the ability. By giving you the mitzvah, he's giving you the ability to do it. So if it were necessary to take it down from heaven, we would have had the ability to do it. As it isn't necessary because it came to us through Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu did have to go up to Sinai to get the Luchos. He did have to go to a place that was in another sphere. So this Sfas Emes to me lays the groundwork. By giving us the mitzvahs, Ramchal also says it, the mitzvahs are connected to the ultimate spiritual realities. Who made it possible that I should put leather straps on my arm and on my head every morning and then move around the spiritual pieces that underlie the whole creation? That's what it meant. That's what it meant to be given the mitzvah. Given the mitzvah means to be connected to that, and your action that has that enormous effect. So that's sanctifying us by giving us a whole system of mitzvahs, not just doing one mitzvah at a time. So this definitely set us apart, but the others set us apart beforehand also. Okay, and you have given us, Hashem, your God, our God in love, appointed times. Now, in the Hebrew, you have mo'adim, chagim, and zmanim. 3 different words to indicate holidays. Mo'ed, they translate it as appointed times. It's not wrong, but the word mo'ed carries with it another connotation, and that is a meeting time. Avad in Hebrew is a committee. So you can understand it as times for meeting. And this is a characteristic of the holidays. The 3 major festivals are pilgrimage festivals, where you go up to Yerushalayim, you go into the temple, you present the sacrifice, you're standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the temple. And the word there that's used is yireh and yera'eh, to see and be seen. And one of the Mefarshim says, you go there that God should see you. I mean, he sees you everywhere. You go there so God should see you. And then you should see how he sees you. He makes his vision of you available to you. That's very valuable, because we see ourselves through a haze of hopes and fears and rationalizations and shortcuts and biases. Get a vision of what we really are like. So there's a mutual seeing that's available. So this Moed is a time for that kind of meeting. There are other features to the meeting as well. And it includes a Shani and Kippur, because they too are times for this kind of meeting. As some commentators point out, on Rosh Hashanah, you blow shofar. Halachically, you are as if you are in the temple, in the holies of the temple. That's why you can't gild it. Can't put golden clothes when you wear it, when you do it, like the high priest. And Yom Kippur says, Lifnei Hashem Titaru, you purify yourself before Hashem. So it's as if you are going there and presenting yourself there, even though physically you don't have to do it. And Shabbos, it says, B'chol Moshoseichem, Shabbos is in all your habitations, because Baruch Hu comes to you wherever you are. This, for those who know, the Parsha in Emor, the Parsha of Moadim, it's machlokes in the Gemara, though Rashi and the Ramban say it one way, on the Gemara, whether Shabbos is a Moed or isn't a Moed. So you should know that there's a man in the Gemara that it is a Moed. So that's one thing, that there are times of meeting. Chag, the word Chag means particularly to offer a particular sacrifice, which is what you're supposed to do on the 3 pilgrimage festivals. And Zman means the time of year, the date, because they always occur on the same date. It's a little complicated. All the holidays are fixed to the date on the calendar except one. Which one?
Shabbos?
I mean yearly holidays.
Fine.
Okay, so it's a chor b'haskala, something that you need to know. Shavuos. Shavuos is 50 days after the beginning of Pesach. And in ancient times, when the moon was sanctified by the court, it would be either on the 5th, 6th, or 7th of Sivan, year by year, changing the date. Not fixed to the date on the calendar. But it is fixed in its time, in terms of its relationship to Pesach. So the idea here is that history is not a straight line. History moves through a kind of cycle, but it's not a strict cycle, because when you come back, you'll come back to the same point. It's like, now there's one way to use the word, the spiral, which people told me is not normal. A spiral looks like this, a 3-dimensional spiral. So that it's a circular progress, but you're also progressing forward also. So when you come back after a year, you're at the same point on the revolution, but you're not in the same point in space, because you've moved forward in between. So, but you are in the same point on the 360 degrees cycle. So there's something in common with what happened before at the time that you are at now. And that's why, say all the commentators, that's why our celebrations typically are repeating the events that took place on the day that we are commemorating. So we make a Seder on the first night of Pesach, because that's what they did in Egypt. It's exactly what they did. If we had the temple, we would do it even more exactly. We light candles on Hanukkah, and we just had the celebration of Purim together with a drinking party, because this is exactly what they did. Rosh Hashanah was the day which man came into existence, not the day in which the world was created. It was created 5 days before, but man came into existence, which was the beginning of judgment. There was someone in existence who could be judged, and that repeats every year. Yom Kippur is the day in which Moses came down with the second tablets, where we were forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. That became a day of forgiveness every year. I mean, the time repeats with the date, repetition of the date, and therefore we do what's relevant to what happened at the original time. That's why these holidays are called times. So you have three separate words that describe the holiday, describe three separate facets of the holiday. Yeah?
Could you have kindness before man was created?
No.
Okay. So both kindness and judgment emerge at the same time.
Well, you can have kindness in the indirect sense that if you create, let's say I'm going to adopt a child, and I build an extra room in my house and decorate it. Is that not an act of kindness in preparing for the child who's going to be adopted? So,
right, but it's arguably it's a preparatory act of justice too, because you're preparing the bed for the being that will eventually be judged.
no,
Why not?
no. Why? Yes, you just made it up. It's not connected. I don't owe him anything. I'm adopting him out of my desire to benefit his life. Of course, he'll be judged. That's part of the process of benefiting him. But making the room is just an act of kindness. Okay, now one more thing that the Kiddush Levi says. So, what is the name of this holiday that we're coming up to? Well, what does it say in Kiddush? Chag HaMatzos, Festival of Matzos, the Cracker Festival. Okay, I didn't say it. Don't quote me. I didn't say it. Right? We never call it that. You never called it that in your lifetime. What do you call it? Pesach. What's the matter here? We're not satisfied with the Torah's title. Chag HaMatzos is what the Torah calls it. We never called it. We called it Pesach. How about the holiday of the first day of the year, first day of the seventh month of the year? What's that called? First day of the seventh month of the year. No, seventh month, not every month. Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yeah.
Rosh Hashanah. You can look through 1,000 pages of Tanakh. You will never find the phrase Rosh Hashanah, ever, ever. What does the Torah call it?
The day of remembrance.
Okay, not quite. You're quoting from the Siddur. Not quite right. One place is called Yom Truah, the day of the shofar blast. Another place is called Zichron Truah, remembering the shofar blast. Both of them are the shofar blast. Are we getting a pattern here? Torah's name is Pesach and ours is Chag HaMatzos. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. It's called Yom Truah, right? Let's see, Shavuos. Shavuos is the Torah's word, and we do use it, but the Gemara has a different word for Shavuos. That's a seres. That's seres, kind of ending and holding back, right? Yeshivat Levi says that the Torah's name for the holiday describes what we do, and our name for the holiday describes what God did. We're each seeing the holiday through the eyes of the other, which he says is characteristic of a love relationship. Because Baruch Hu says, what is the upcoming holiday? That's when my children eat matzah. They do my mitzvah of eating matzah. And we say, what is the upcoming holiday? That's when he executed the Egyptian firstborn, and we were saved from that execution. That's what Pesach means. And Rosh Hashanah Well, that's the day when my children blow the shofar. They do my mitzvah. And we say it's the time when the world began, in the sense of man's creation, was the beginning of the purpose of the world. So he says it in our terms, and we say it in his terms. And this he takes out of a verse. There's an actual verse that says this, basically. Because it says that God tells Moses we have to take revenge from Midian because of what they did to undermine the Jewish people. I want you to fight a war. And God says to Moses, tell the people that they should exact the revenge of the Jewish people against Midian. That's what God tells Moses to say. And Moses says to the people, we're going to fight a war against Midian to exact God's revenge for Midian. Because in causing us to sin, they frustrated, so to speak, God's plans. They did it had an effect on God. So he sees it from our point of view, we see it from his point of view. This is when you say the name, it's the name of the mitzvah. So the name of the holiday, to realize that it comes from two different points of view. Then it says Man Cheruseinu, the time of our freedom. Now this is very, very important. Cherus is not the only word in Hebrew that connotes freedom. One other word is chofish. That's like summer vacation, when you're free from school. Also connotes chofshi, someone who lives his life free from the mitzvos altogether, just throws them off. Another one is shichrur, which means to be released. Why was the word, there's another word, dror. Dror is another word for freedom. Why was the word cherus used for freedom in this context? My Rebbe Zatzal, everybody says it, but my Rebbe Zatzal really stressed it. Cherus is the same letters for the word engraved. And it says that the letters were engraved on the tablets that Moses got at Sinai. Charus ala luchos, engraved on the tablets. And the Rebbe said, when you say these words in prayer or in Kiddush, Zman Cheruseinu, you should be thinking already about Shavuos. You should be thinking about the fact that my freedom is for the sake of being able to fulfill what is engraved on the tablets. Meaning that the whole purpose of the Exodus from Egypt was to make it possible for us to receive the Torah. That's why we were freed from Egypt, not for any other reason. I will have a whole shir in the evening. I'm going to talk about freedom. And so that when you say Zman Cheruseinu, you should think ahead. Actually, it's built on the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer. You know, when the second day of Pesach, you start counting the days between Pesach and Shavuos. You count them up, count to 49, and the 50th day is Shavuos. We'll talk about that as well, what exactly the structure of that mitzvah is. But that's what you're supposed to be thinking about when you say time of freedom using this particular word. Okay, this is called a remembrance to the Exodus from Egypt. That's pretty obvious since we're celebrating the actual Exodus. And then it says at the end of the Kiddush, these days which you gave us in simcha and saso, rejoicing. How do they translate it here? Joy and gladness. Simcha is a whole subject which we could talk about for days and days. Simcha is specified in two ways. In the Torah itself, it's specified for certain periods of time, for the holidays. Samachta b'chagecha. That's the mitzvah that's specified. King David says, if there was Hashem b'simcha, all actions of service of God should be done with joy. There's another reference in the Tochacha in Deuteronomy 28, where it describes our terrible failures and the terrible disaster that will take place. And the only crime or only failure, spiritual failure, that's mentioned in that long, terrible chapter, terrible suffering, is Tachas shelo avadem b'Shem Elokechem b'simcha merov tuv. You didn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with joy. So even though the formal command of simcha is v'samachta b'chagecha, you should rejoice on the holidays, there are references to simcha in other ways. There's one more that I have told you before. That is that simcha is relevant, is a part of Shabbos, because when you're given the commandment, we're given the commandments to make the silver trumpets, and it says when you blow the silver trumpets, it says, "B'yom simchaschem u'moadaichem v'rosh chodshechem," and it says to blow the silver trumpets on 3 occasions: the days of your joy, and the holidays, and the beginning of the month. Okay, I know what a holiday is. I know the beginning of the month is. What is the day of the joy? Well, think of the order. Day of joy comes first, then holidays, and then you go down to the beginning of the month. So then the day of the joy has to be higher than the holidays. Is this a really tough question? What could you possibly put in a slot that's higher than the holidays going down to the head of the months? Shabbos, obviously. And that's what Chazal say. Yom Chaschem Ela Shabbosos. Right? So it is mentioned with respect to Shabbos also, but it's not a command. It's a reality. It's actual reality. So you have to understand that simcha is the tenor of the life of a Jew. A Jew who's living the way Hakadosh Baruch Hu wants him to live. You know, people have this picture. You know, what is a tzaddik? Someone who struggles hard to do the right thing. The evil inclinations in front of him all the time. He's battling all the time. And he's at a nice edge. Maybe he'll succeed, maybe he won't. He's full of fear and worry and anxiety and so forth and so on. Well, at the very least, that's not a complete picture. Because King David said, Ivdu Hashem b'simcha. Should serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with joy. It's possible to be afraid and joyful at the same time. My example is crossing Niagara Falls on a tightrope, blindfolded. Now, if you're chosen to do that, you presumably have the ability. And when you finish it, you're going to win a $10 million prize, and your name's going to go in the Guinness Book of World Records, and you're going to be all over Facebook and all the rest. You're really going to be a tremendous success. But of course, if you fall off, you're going to be dead. So, I have both joy and fear at the same time. Another example that I mentioned in this connection is marriage, which you definitely should be fearful about because it's easy enough to make terrible mistakes in marriage, and of course it's very joyful. So the fact that you have this sense of the obligation to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu at every moment and the preciousness of it and the size of failure if you fail, still there should be joy at all times. So here the Kiddush stresses joy because that's the one place where you have in the Torah an actual commandment to be joyful. Now, just to finish it off, what's the difference in Sason and Simcha? Simcha and Sason. The Gaon of Vilna defines the difference as follows. Simcha is something you prepare for. You know something's going to happen, you're excited about it, and you make preparations for it so that when it comes, you'll be able to celebrate it the appropriate way, like getting married. Sason is something which is unexpected. Sas anochi alim rasecha, says King David, kemotzi shal rav. I rejoice on your words like finding a great treasure. Most people don't go searching for great treasures because it's going to be a very poor way to live. It's very unlikely you're going to find one. But sometimes you trip over them. Sometimes you find they happen to you. So, Sason is the unexpected things that occur to you that are wonderful. And by the way, that's also marriage. Marriage is something you prepare for and plan and analyze and try to control. And there'll always be unexpected things. And sometimes some of the unexpected things are tremendously joyful. You just didn't anticipate them. You weren't aware of them. At any rate, the holiday has to be prepared for, obviously. Something we should prepare for it by learning about it, by setting up the physical requirements that are necessary, sometimes by earning the money to pay for them. And then, usually, when you perform it, there are surprises as well that create great joy. So, that's Kiddush. Introduction to Kiddush.